I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all right. All my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts, welcome to the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and thank you all so much for taking your time to join with us this weekend. We're having some great shows so far, and today we're going to have another great show because he's back. He's back. It's the second Sunday of the month, and we've got Ask Gardener Scott. Yeah, Gardener Scott is back with us. He took a month off last month. He joins with us every second Sunday of the month to answer all of your garden questions. And last month, Gardener Scott went on a trip to the UK and had this just amazing garden adventure basically that hopefully we're going to dig into and get a bunch of insights into how that trip went and all of that from Gardener Scott. So I just really excited about talking with him about that. He got to meet up with some of our good gardener friends here from the show as well too. So great stuff to talk about, as well as all of your gardening questions. Like I said, this is a Q&A show specifically. So if you do have any garden questions, this is the show for you. Gardener Scott will be here just a little bit later on to share all of his wonderful and immense garden knowledge with all of us. So really looking forward to that coming up here in just a little bit too on the show. Again, thank you all so much for being here. If you can, right at the top of the show, click that thumbs up, hit the like button, as well as subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams, as we got many more great guests and live streams coming up for you. But I didn't get to mention this yesterday on the show, so I will mention this again next Saturday as well too. But future shows, I do have a Saturday show that we're not going to be able to make because it's going to be my granddaughter's first birthday, and I'm going to take the day off. I'm going to go hang out with my granddaughter, and we're going to have a fun day celebrating her first year with us. And so I'm really excited about that. But it just happened to line right up with a Saturday. So when it comes down to it, we just going to have to skip that one, but we'll be there. We'll be here for sure on the Sunday show as well too. We'll talk all about that sort of stuff as we get closer to those days coming up here towards the end of the month. And definitely, if you can, please share and let everybody know about the Let's Get Growing show. Let everyone know like how much fun we're having here each and every Saturday and Sunday. I mean, every Saturday and Sunday, except for coming up and a few here and there. But for the most part, every Saturday and Sunday right here, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And for those of you over in the UK, 7 p.m. BST. So we're having amazing conversations here. We're building such a great community, having such fun time right here each and every weekend. And you don't want to, you don't want to let your garden friends miss out. You know what I mean? So make sure that they get to know about that and go and share with us. Get out on your social media, get out there. Let's get the word out. Let's really do some shouting out in other parts of social media and all of that, and make sure that folks can find us right here on the Urban Gardener channel and catch up with all of these just really amazing conversations. Like I said, we got lots of great shows coming up as well too, so you won't want to miss out on those as well. Right on. And of course, big huge shout out to all those of you watching on our replay. Thank you so much for joining with us on your time, and definitely get into the comment section below. I want to hear from all of you. Let me know if you got any comments, suggestions, questions, or any. Let me know again too. I really want to hear from people about some of your favorite channels and your favorite garden communicators out there who we could invite to the show and maybe have on and have some discussions and all that too. So I want to hear all of those suggestions down in the comments. But even if you just want to say hi, I want to hear from you. Let me know what you got growing on. Drop into the comments below. So thank you so much, everybody, for doing that and taking the time to, that's a really a big way that supports the channel and supports us and really helps us out to get these shows seen through YouTube. That's one of the things that we have to, kind of deal with in the long run, is that, we've got to get YouTube to want to allow people to see our show to a certain degree. And that is when people are clicking those thumbs up, when people are putting the comments in the section, these or comments in the comment section. Those are just engagements that lets the YouTube algorithm, it's a computer that is looking to see who's got engagement, who's got views, who's got things going on, and then they promote those shows that gets that sort of engagement. So definitely comment when you can, even if it's just to say hi. Thumbs up always, and share, definitely that share button. If you're sharing to your community page on your YouTube page, that's a huge engagement for our channels as well too. So definitely do those sort of things if you can. I really appreciate it, because again, like I said, we're having so much fun here. We want to make sure that as many people as possible can come join our community, come join in on the fun that we're having here all the time too. So all right, and again too, it's a Q&A show with Gardener Scott coming up here. So if you do have any questions or comments, definitely drop into our chat section here as well too. And again too, love to hear from you. Even if you haven't dropped into the chat before, definitely drop in. Let us know you're here. Let us know what you got growing on. I also like to say too, if you do have small channels and you like a little shout out, mention that you have a small channel as well too in our comments there, and we'll get a shout out to you as well too. But again, Q&A show today with Gardener Scott coming up here. Put those questions in big, bold, capital letters. I'll try to mark them and make sure I save them for the conversation and get them asked during the conversation. That's a big caveat to all of that too as well, is that this is kind of a conversational Q&A. So we're going to try to fit them in as we can and put them in. I do try to make sure we get to most all of them that we can, or at least most all relevant ones as we can too. But this is pretty much an open Q&A. All garden questions are welcome here. And yeah, big, bold, capital letters. I'll mark them up. We'll get them into the conversation, and yeah, have some real fun with Gardener Scott and see what he can tell us today, what we need to know about what's growing on in our gardens. And definitely follow all those descriptions down below, or links in the description down below to all of like Gardener Scott's channel. If you haven't subscribed, go check him out, go support him, to all of our other social media and all that sort of stuff. Go check that stuff out if you get a chance to. So thank you all so much again for being here. We're having a great weekend so far. Had a wonderful conversation, wonderful show yesterday. I'm busy working in the garden, getting things all together still, planting out, and doing some stuff. But actually, really, to tell you the truth, over today and maybe tomorrow and the next day, really, I'm just trying to keep things alive here in the early season. Is what we have is a lot of early young starts that are out in the garden right now. And one of the issues I'm dealing with right now is it was mid upper 90s yesterday. It's supposed to be hotter today, maybe about the same tomorrow, and then about what it was yesterday, the day after, and then it's supposed to cool down again, back down towards maybe the early 80s, upper 70s or something. Not quite sure. We'll see when we get there, but it is supposed to cool down a bit from where it is right now. But this is kind of a little heat wave we're having, and it's a heat wave during the time, like I said, we've got young starts out there. We've got a lot of things that are just starting to get established in the garden right now. So I'm out there just trying to make sure that they're staying wet throughout the day, staying cool. I don't want them to get too hot. There's a lot of containers. So at this point in time, I'm really just kind of trying to keep some nice cool water on them and trying to keep them cool through the midday and just trying to keep them alive right now through these next few days. And I'm sure everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to go good when it comes down to it. But again, we got to try to do and strategize when there's just little issues that kind of pop up like this that happen, especially with weather, for some of us who live in these regions where it's really starting to get hotter and hotter earlier and earlier. I mean, it's like I said yesterday too on the show, it was like a switch flipped, just like that, snap of the fingers, flip a switch, and next thing you know, here we are. Probably it could be 100 degrees today. I'm not even sure. We'll see where we get, but it's going to get up there. Oh boy, I don't even know. Right on, right on. Let's check and see who we got here with us today in the chat. Thank you again, everybody, for taking your time to hang out with us and participate with the show here. Again, like I said earlier, we're really building some really great fun garden community. The chat gets better and better almost every single show, so I really appreciate all of that and all of you for coming and hanging out and being a part of all that we got growing on here. So again, if you haven't dropped into our chat yet, drop on in. Come on in and say hi. Let's say hi to our good friend Jay Dixon, our facilitator. She's joining us from Ontario, Canada. And Jay's our facilitator. Keep an eye out for links and different bits of information. And as I was suggesting earlier, if you have a channel and want to shout out, mention that you have a channel, and Jay can get a link out to everybody there in our chat so that we can give you some support as well too. So thanks, Jay. Thanks for all you do in helping us facilitate the show. And right on, everybody. Thank you all again, too. I see everybody. There were a few people who were in a little bit early. I saw Janet joined us early saying, always looking forward to you all. Learn something new every time. And the puns, I know. You guys have some real fun in the chat there with some of those puns and jokes and things like that, too. Thinking of adding worms to a raised bed. Wonder what experience anyone has had. Central Texas here, 8B, 9A. If your raised bed is kind of closed off and you're adding a lot of good compost and organic material and things that worms can really feed on and all of that, yeah, I mean, I've got worms in my elevated raised beds and all of that. My containers got worms every time I'm digging in there. When I was planting plants out this last week or so in those containers, I was finding worms all over the place. But and I'm sure that they're fine in those situations as well too, if everything's kept and maintained right, and we're doing nice organic gardening, and all I'm really doing is adding my compost and all of that sort of stuff to it. So everything seems to be fine as far as that goes. So that would be my point on that question there too. Thanks, Janet, again for being here. Really appreciate you. I see MPK was in here as well too. Another awesome live stream coming right up. Right on. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for jumping in early too, and getting ready for the show. I saw Dusty Flats as well in a little early as well. Perfect day today. Rained this morning, and taking the day off to join the show. Enjoy the show. Awesome. Excellent. Well, it's good to have a little rainy day. I wish I could have a little bit of that over here. And I see also we got Rick joining us again, like I say, from the future. Thank you, Rick, for getting up nice and bright and early to come hang out with me and Gardener Scott here today for our show. Like I said, we're gonna have a fun show. I'm looking forward to talking to Gardener Scott today. I'm sure lots to talk about. Lots to talk about his trip here though too, because I'm sure he had. I saw some things on his social media and all of that I'm interested in talking to him about. So I know he had a lot of fun over there. Bowtie Life in the Garden, David here. So very excited to be here. Awesome to have you, David. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Right on, you guys. Awesome. Like I said, we got a great conversation coming up here. I see Big Will Dog jumping in the conversation. He says, I made it. Had to watch some video game streams, but I'm here now. Right on. Excellent. Thank you so much, Big Will Dog in the soil. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining in with us. I see Val in the conversation too. Right on. I don't think I'm missing anybody. I could have, but right on. Yeah, like I said, great show today. And as you know, we've been switching things up on our Sunday edition for our In the Garden segment. Over the last few weeks, we've gotten to meet our new contributors. David, of course, from Bowtie Life in the Garden. You always get to hang out with him in the conversation. And our friend Paul from Guten Gardening as well, contributing to our In the Garden segment. So it's been great to get to see their gardens and get that introduction. But, In the Garden is also our good friend Mark Roche Colbert as well too, Mr. MBC. And again, for this week's In the Garden, we have our good friend MBC joining back up with us. And of course, as we'll talk about a little bit later, he'll be again here with us again next week for his monthly live appearance as well too. But we'll also catch up with again moving forward, getting to hang out with all these different gardeners here each and every Sunday. But today, let's go see what our good friend MBC has growing on in the garden.
Hey guys, I'm Mark Boucher Colbert, otherwise known as MBC, and you're in the garden with MBC. Today, it's a beautiful sunny day. We're fully in the summer weather pattern here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm going to take you through a variety of timers today. We're going to look at what a timer is, how it can help us in the garden, and how to not get totally so frustrated with this thing that you want to throw it down and beat it because it's not doing what you want it to do. These things are supposed to be useful, but I admit they can be frustrating. Okay, first and most basic, I'm actually using my most basic timer, the phone, to record this. But if I just have a hose on at my house, turn the sprinkler on, don't want to forget it, I might just set a timer on my phone, right? It just goes off and then I remembered, almost as if I was doing some baking or something, oh yeah, I got to go take care of that thing. I'll admit, many a night, a summer night especially, I have put the sprinkler on outside, gone to watch some program with my wife, kind of gotten a little too comfortable on the couch, doze off, maybe sleep the whole night on the couch. That's happened before. And next morning go out and the sprinkler's still on. That's not a good feeling. Okay, that is not a good feeling. So even you have to be there for if you use your phone timer or whatever other kind of watch timer you might have, you still have to show up. So if for some reason you're not showing up or you're going somewhere, that's not going to work. Kind of the first next level beyond just setting a timer and you being there is a dial timer. Now, this one is supposed to be clicking, indicating, it's kind of like an egg timer, or another, again, like a cooking timer. It's supposed to be ticking. You turn it to whatever your desired amount is, using this arrow on the top. You kind of turn the face to the number of minutes you want, and it clicks away. Now, the fact that this one is not clicking away, it tells you something. It tells you that it's broken. And these are handy. Again, you can go away, just set it, forget it. You twist, I want 60 minutes, boom, in 60 minutes, it's gonna turn around and shut off. But I have a little graveyard full of these. They tend to break easily and then useless. I've kept some around thinking I'm going to fix them and interchange parts. Somehow I never seem to get to that. So I better just face the fact and get rid of them. I'm not really buying these anymore. They don't work for me, but it will keep you from running your water all night, at least for a little while, and it probably will last a season. Okay. These are 10 to 15 bucks, I think. That's going to be the entry level model. The next model is kind of the one station timer. Let me back up and say something else too. I have some auxiliary gear. If I'm going to put this onto a spigot, it's going to screw on right onto the garden hose like this, and then my hose is going to come out from here. If I pull the hose for any reason, it's going to put a lot of stress right here where this meets the metal faucet, the hose bib. So what I like to do is buy one of these little extra flexi hose pieces. I put this on and then the timer winds up going onto here, and it just provides a degree of flexibility between the hose bib and my hose. because you're always going to be manipulating your hose, yanking it this way and that, especially if you're moving a sprinkler around to get it set up. If you have to do any kind of moving at all, you'll want this additional level of flexibility. They also sell, this is a little bit longer version of the same kind of thing. Can be useful if you have to make, a bend in the line and it's your timer's kind of headed downward and you need to somehow round it out. You can use a flexible piece of hose, or again, like these little shorties. These are $4 or $5. Great investment to have up in front. The other thing you want to invest in, any kind of timer, will get jammed up if a bunch of crud gets into it. Sometimes they come with these little filters, these little screen filters. This is a little plastic one. Let's stick it right there. You can see how it's got a little mesh built into it with a rubber washer. You can also just get a box of those as replacements. They do tend to get really gunked up, but beginning of the season, you're probably going to want to change these out, put some new ones on, make sure your rubber washers are good, connections are good, you won't have leaks and all that.
Oh, come on. Is it playing or not playing for me? Oh my gosh. Oh my, here we go again. Sorry guys, I'm gonna try to get this set up here. Give me 1 second. Again, I don't know why and what is. I'm gonna have to figure this out. And I know I saw that too, Gardner Scott. It should be in the email I sent you though too. So I'll get that out here real quick. We got all sorts of things going on right here. So just give me one moment, everybody. We'll get right back to where Mark was. Hopefully I could get it right back or get it close enough to where we were when he left off there anyways. So again, I apologize everybody for this. I still got to get this system figured out. There's some little glitch that continues to catch me, and it always catches me at some different time every single time. So that's why it's hard to kind of figure out what this little gremlin is. But hopefully we can get it figured out.
Okay. Doesn't get a very high rating. Next is this battery operated one. Battery pack. These need to come out for the winter, by the way. Don't leave these in. Take your batteries out. Fresh batteries in the spring. Okay. This is a single station timer, right? It's only going to do one area. If you wanted to do another area, you're going to have to move the sprinkler. What can we do with this? Well, first of all, you can see there's a whole bunch of different words around here. And there's a little triangle pointing right now to off. There is a triangle sign here, and that will make the triangle rotate around. See that? When I press the button, it goes around to the various things. Let's see what it's going to do. Okay, set clock, right? If we need to set the clock and also the date, and you accomplish that by pushing these plus and minus buttons. Let's look at the water day. That means how many days. Look, I can make that go to every other day, every third day, every fourth day, fifth, etc., etc. So I could do once a week, I could do 3 times a week, I could do every day. I usually set mine for every day, but it's a matter of personal preference and what you're watering. Then, okay, here's where it gets a little complicated. We've got a start time that's showing 5 p.m., but then you can see these cycles, cycle A, B, C, and D. In other words, I can make this thing go off 4 times a day. What's the advantage to that? That often shorter, more frequent watering is better than one long water. And here's the thought on that. If the soil dries out at all, especially in the hot summer, if the surface dries out, one watering, you may lose some water. this is not as much of an issue if you're doing it regularly, but if you're like on a week timer, once a week, your top layer of soil may dry out and a certain amount of water may run off. Depends what you're doing, but especially with containers, if you're sprinkling containers or something, the first bit of water may be shed, and it may take repeated waterings for that to really percolate through. So sometimes you want short periods more frequently than one long period. Matter of preference. But now, so if we touch the triangle, we're going to go out of that start water, and we can see that cycle A is set for 5. So down here there's a cycle button, and if we press that, we can make it go around the different cycles. Now, if you just wanted to go once a day, you can zero out the other cycles, just set them to their base. Let's see if we can get it to the 0 time. Okay. Oh, the other annoying thing about timers is they sort of advance minute by minute, and then you have to keep pressure on, then it really speeds around. Let's see what happens when we get to midnight, though. I'm watching these numbers go backwards on my screen, because I think there'll be oh, there we go. Okay, so we can see, that's what 0 looks like. So when you get back to midnight, or let's see, yeah, it starts just before midnight. You get the straight line. That means nothing going on. Okay, so that's how you deal with these cycles. You can have it go up to 4 times a day. If you only want it 1 time a day, you zero out the other cycles. We use the cycle button to move around between A, B, C, and D. Got that? Okay, let's touch our magic triangle again. How long? This is going to tell this thing how long to water each cycle. So if you're only doing it once a week, you might be doing something like 2 hours, 120 minutes, or 3 hours, 180 minutes. But if you're doing it 4 times a day, you might just be doing
All right, we are having so many issues right now with this. I don't know. I hope that we can continue this. I'm telling you, this is more issues than I've had at all with this sort of. We've never had it go and act like. So I apologize, everybody. Here, I'm trying to get through this thing, but oh yikes! Let's see here. I'm trying to drop it in. I hope I don't. But again, we're almost finished. I want to get Mark's segment done and in for him too. So I really apologize, you guys. There's some little gremlin running around in our system right now, and I'm not figuring it out what it is. So hopefully everything will go and we can keep the show going without too many more problems. But again, I do apologize, everybody. Is it even? There we go.
$30 or $40, but man, once you get one of these, you have a lot of power. Again, provided you take the batteries out, I found that this is a very multi-year kind of thing. Last but not least, let's look at a little bit bigger model, where we start to get into what's called a manifold, a many branching faucet or hose setup here. And here's another piece of advice. Whenever I set up a sprinkler to go off at a later time, especially if I'm not going to be around, I always run it through one manual cycle to make sure, first of all, whatever the connection is actually on. Because believe it or not, no matter how well you've set your timer, if your hose bib is off, the timer will open, but the fact that it's open doesn't mean water will pass through it, because maybe you didn't open up the water. I've done that before. I speak from experience. So anyway, you want to make sure you open up the water and test it. I always test it with the manual before I leave it to go on its own. Especially important if you're going away for a few days, going away on vacation. You also want to make sure where your sprinkler is going to spray will cover everything you need it to. Maybe a single timer might not be enough. You may need one of these with a multi-valve setup. Now let's just go through this one briefly. In terms of the actual timer programming, we're basically the same. We have an off, we have an auto, we have all the set things. There's a manual, right? I can enter this manual, and this one doesn't have an OK button. I just press the enter again. I'll press manual. Let's see, what could we get it on the manual? And it might have to be on auto, this one. Let's see if we did it to manual. There we go. It asks me now, because I've got 4 stations, 4 possibilities. Let's see what they're calling this. Yeah, I've got 4 stations, so now I have to indicate, let's say I have just station 1, okay. Then I'm gonna go to my plus. I wanna run it just for a test of 3 minutes. Okay, then I say enter, and we can see that the valve is now open. I just heard it click, actually. The water's gonna rush through. I can test to make sure it's gonna work. If I'm done with my test and I'm satisfied, I can press the manual again. That will turn it off. Hear the click, let's see. No, did it do it? Oh, on this one, I have to actually physically shut it off. There's the click, off. See, each one of these is a little different. So therein becomes some of the trouble. All right, the trick with this one is, see, when you have, these are solenoid valves, okay? They operate by a wire to open and close. This one's got it built in. So this one you can have up to 4 stations. Again, you must ensure that water is flowing to here, and then that each of these are open. See, I can close these too. So when I don't want to bother with changing all my programs, I just close these if I just want to operate one. The valve might open because the program is running, but if there's no water here, there'll be no water flowing. But conversely, these need to be open in order for the water to flow. We have wires, numbered wires that lead to these valves. So if I'm programming for station 1, this one, what I think is station 1, better be connected to the number 1 here. If not, I'm going to be programming for a different station. So, you know, obviously a different level of complexity, but now with this one, I can be making it do 4 different things at once. So I can have 4 different hoses going to 4 different sets of drip lines or sprinklers and making them operate on 4 different schedules. This one's obviously more costly, but eminently more useful if you have a multi-station. And I've seen people put these manifolds that then lead to other manifolds that have a whole host of different kinds of timers based on all the needs of the crops that they have. Anyway, timers are a wonderful tool. They let you get away during the summer. They also just keep the regularity of water. Even when I'm around, I often have them running various sprinklers and drip lines just because I don't have to worry about things, or I can supplementally water maybe some corners where the sprinkler doesn't hit quite as well. Just takes some of the load off of me and provides that regularity. But like anything else, they're fallible. They can break down. You should put fresh batteries in them. You should always verify using the manual programming to make sure you're getting what you think you're going to get. And, you know, I say, if you stick with these, you take care of them. You put these flexible hose connectors when you set them up on your hose bib. I've had these both, well, this one's a new one from last year, but I've had this for many, many years. So they will last quite a while. They're very reliable, and just a big relief for you as a gardener, providing that kind of consistency when you're there and that consistency when you're gone, which allows you to take a little break during the summer, which we all want and need, right? From time to time, right? Go away to the coast, do something fun, go to the mountains, whatever you're gonna do. You don't have to be worried about your garden. This has got you covered, provided you understand it, play around with it, test it, make sure it's doing what you want, and then you're good to go. Then you can trust it. So I hope you can find a way to work timers in. I don't recommend this one unless you're just getting started, because like I said, I've got a graveyard. But get yourself one of these, and after you learn it, you'll be really happy with the result. Hey, wishing you great gardening. I'll see you again next month in the garden with MBC. Take care.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals. And our incredible featured visits. Oh. All right, everybody. Are we having some fun or what today? Boy, oh boy, I'm telling you what, like I said, I'm glad we did finally get through that video with Mark there. Great information on doing water timers. It was really funny. I was talking with him the other day about it because he was telling me that was what his video was for this week. And it was literally just like the very evening before. I was just having a frustrating time with one of these timers, I'm telling you. So his timer video was very timely when it comes down to it. So perfect. You want to get some of those. They're really good to have, especially like I said, you want to make sure things are consistently watered. I was just mentioning a little bit earlier, it could be 100 degrees today. I got to make sure my garden isn't drying out and all of that sort of stuff. So really kind of an important thing to do. And if you don't have time to be doing it all the time yourself by hand watering and all of that, which is what I really like to do most of the time, because I got a lot of stuff I want to make sure I'm keeping an eye on things and all of that sort of stuff. But sometimes, we've got to do other things sometimes, and it's good to have those timer systems for those opportunities for sure. Jay, I was so happy to see that video. I wet my plants. Yeah, right on, everyone. Excellent. Again, too, if you haven't, everybody checked out our show yesterday. We had a great show yesterday. We were talking with Jeremy Trotsky from Dirty Punk Gardening, came to join with us to talk all about his garden journey. Just a really great story. Really loved talking with him about that. A lot of similarities that we had in our stories too. Plus, we got to have MCR Urban Gardener, Yaz from MCR Urban Gardener came back to the show too. She returned to talk to us and catch us up with her alleyway gardens that she's got growing over there in Manchester, United Kingdom, and just a really fun conversation with her. So you want to go back and check out yesterday's show if you didn't get to check that out. And also too, last week we had our good friend. I mean, I love talking to this guy too, Cisco Morris. Northwest treasure, garden treasure for sure. Cisco Morris came to the show last week, share a bunch of really fun, entertaining, funny garden stories too. He's such a hoot, that guy. But great conversation with him. You want to go back and check that show out too. We also got to meet Aaron from Garden Zaddy as well too. So go check out last Saturday's show if you didn't get a chance to. And last Sunday, for our Sunday edition, we had our feature roundtable conversation. We were talking and asking what brings you joy in the garden with Ashley Thomas, the Mocha Gardener, and Christy Wilhelmi from Garden Nerd joined with us too to talk all about what brings joy to them in their gardens. We had a great conversation as well too. So you want to go back and check those shows out too if you didn't get a chance to. So right on. Like I said, we got lots and lots going on here. And again, too, I hope all of you have been thinking about what garden questions and garden things that are going on in your garden so that you have your questions ready now. And like I say too, and I mentioned just a little bit earlier, if you do have any questions or comments or anything, let's put those in big bold capital letters so I can make sure I see them and we can get them asked of our guest here coming up so that we can make sure we get all of your garden question answered for our Q&A with Garden Scott. Here we go. All right. Let's welcome to the show. It's great to have him back, Gardener Scott Wilson. Here we are joining us. How you been doing, man? I'm telling you, we got lots to talk about because you've been on some great adventures. But just real quick, just how you been doing lately? How things going?
I'm good. Been out in the garden all morning so far because the weather here has just been terrible. The weeds are growing. No. It's been cold and rainy. And so today we had a beautiful day and I'm gradually getting caught up, but most of my garden isn't even planted yet just because it's still too cold.
Still too cold for you. Oh man. And here I am talking about heat waves and trying to keep my plants alive and everything. And you're just still trying to get them plants out into the garden.
Yeah. Today and tomorrow should be the first evenings where we reach 50 degrees, 10 Celsius at night. So, I always recommend don't put your tomatoes and peppers out until you have sustained nighttime temperatures. And we have yet to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And then my soil temperature has not reached the minimum to put in tomatoes and peppers. So hopefully this next week, we'll see some changes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yes, hopefully for sure. Cause you want to get those going and get those plants growing in the garden. It's something we've been waiting for. So the anticipation, I'm sure, is pretty high for sure to get a lot of that stuff out. I know I got a lot of my stuff out over the last several weeks, waiting for my last frost date. I was just going to be secure this year because I just had a problem a couple of years back. But man, I could have just gone ahead a month before and just went ahead and done it. Sure. But I waited anyways. But everything's out there. But one of the things too, also with some of these areas like mine, is that for me, we may have this possibility of a last frost that could creep up to us even after the last frost date. But then a switch flips. Last frost date happens, and then boom, next thing you know, we're in heat wave time. Summertime's just barreling over us and everything, and I'm out there trying to keep my plants alive that I just put in the garden.
Yeah. Now I have been lucky because it's been so rainy and overcast and cool that I've been transplanting. I've been taking plants from one area and moving them to another area, taking volunteers that have popped up and putting them around the garden. And so the weather has actually been very good for that because you don't want necessarily to transplant during the heat of summer. So I am getting some things done. I'm just not doing my primary gardening activities that most of you are already doing.
Yeah. I know them poor plants too, just to having to, for one, just having to deal with just the transplant shock in that, but then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, they're not really that comfortable as the roots are in there because of course they're going to go through some sort of transplant shock, but then they go and they notice, oh, the soil feels just great. This is right. And then they just get going. And then next thing you know, the sun's beaming down on them really hard. And they're like, I don't got a root system yet that can handle this.
That's right.
Oh my. But hopefully we'll make it out through these next few days. All right. And hopefully things will warm up for you. And also I was talking with our guest yesterday too. He lives over in Ohio. And if you know about anything that's going on for them and their weather over there, they're just in constant rain right now.
Yeah. So it's, the same basic systems that are blowing in across the northern US and it's hitting us and then it's moving on to, the states to the east, and Ohio is definitely on the path of a lot of the same storms we're getting.
Yeah. They just, it's all moving around. It's all these systems, but they just affect us all just a little bit differently in different places. Just how it moves those jet streams and whatever it's doing, all of that. But all of us got different things, and it is really just kind of typical of this time of year, though, right? It's just all sorts of different things going on, different places, because really everywhere is just trying to move towards the warmer summer period, and lots of ups and downs, rain, hot weather, cool weather. It doesn't matter. Yeah, all right, all right. Well, let's see here. Well, there was a question that kind of popped in. Or a little discussion a little bit earlier. I thought maybe we could kind of start with a little bit here.
Okay.
And then we'll get into talking about some of this other stuff that you've been having going on, because I got a lot I want to talk to you about that as well too. But let's jump right into some questions. Val in it earlier was saying, has anyone ever put aspirin on tomatoes? Now,
I haven't, but that is one of those things. There's so many. Put baking soda, put eggshells, put milk, put this and that and the other on your tomatoes. But there's actually some research that supports using aspirin for very specific situations. So it's not a magic cure, but it has shown to be beneficial for some problems in tomatoes. But I typically don't have very many problems in my tomatoes because I have strong plants because I've got good soil. So I personally haven't had to use aspirin.
yeah. So in ways, what do you know of as far as like, what would it possibly be doing for the plant? You know what I mean? If we're
So
adding into it, if you have any
typically
idea
what
about
you'll
that.
do is you make it into like a spray, and
Mhm.
that's what you want to do. So you're doing it like as a spray that you are covering. It's not like you're burying the aspirin, and that's why
Okay.
some of these things really get confusing, because you'll bury the eggshells, you'll bury banana peels. Don't do either one of those. They really don't do anything.
Mhm.
But the aspirin is something that you can spray, and so it's the salicylic acid, which is what aspirin is,
Okay.
has been shown to encourage the growth hormones. So there are auxins, the hormones that are within plants. And so some of the studies with tomatoes in particular have shown that when you spray the aspirin solution, it tends to encourage those hormones to then encourage more plant growth. And so if you don't have a problem with your plant growth,
Mhm.
then that's really not necessary. The reason it's often cited as, oh yeah, it's a miracle thing, is because people say it deters pests. Some will say that it prevents fungal diseases. I'm not aware of any research that shows that any of that stuff is accurate. The only stuff that it has shown that I'm aware of is just the hormone
Mm.
enhancement.
And done as a foliar spray,
Yeah.
not like something you're just digging into or whatever, like like a lot of other things you see. I get, Tony was
Exactly.
actually mentioning there in the comments, we see a lot of stuff that's just a bunch of hooey, a bunch of rubbish, when it comes down to it, a lot of things that seemingly, really too. And this is a problem with a lot of misinformation though, too, is that sometimes it seemingly makes sense, right? We
Well, that's
think of
just it. Like
bananas and
banana peels, for
potassium,
instance.
right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Hmm.
Plants need potassium as one of the 6 macronutrients. And everybody knows that bananas are loaded with potassium. So therefore, it makes sense that if we put banana peels in our garden, that our plants are getting potassium. But most of the potassium from bananas comes from the actual banana, not the peel. And by
Right.
burying the peel, any residue from the banana is
Yeah.
dissipated, and it's not the same form of potassium that locks into the soil and is available to the plant. So yeah, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but there really isn't a causal relationship to many of these things that make sense but really don't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's so many of them. In fact, we do have a question coming up where we're talking about one that just gets me all the time. And every single year we see it, it pops up all the time. And you mentioned a little bit about eggshells and all that sort of stuff. It tends to be one of those solutions people throw out there for blossom end rot.
Yeah.
Serena asked, my first Roma tomato had blossom end rot. I just got extra tomato plant food formulated with calcium for it. Will that work, or should I use something else? If so, what else should I use? Now,
Don't
really,
use
again,
anything.
too, Yeah, really, because really one of the things I've learned ultimately is that when blossom end rot really is hit, it just means that something has already happened to your plant. And by the time you're noticing it through the fruit, it's probably already gone through that
Yeah. And what has happened?
that problem it did.
There's a 98% probability that you
Mhm.
overwatered your plants or that you underwatered
Yeah.
your plant.
At some
Because
point previously that caused the
yeah.
blossom to
And you're right. It's at that critical point. And so this is another one of those where it's a faulty relationship because
Mhm.
blossom end rot is a calcium deficiency in the fruit of the tomato. And so people see that and go, oh, if it's a calcium deficiency, then the solution is to add calcium. Well,
Yeah.
virtually every soil on the planet has enough calcium to grow
Mhm.
tomatoes. And if you're growing
Yeah.
in a pot, you might need to supplement the calcium, but most potting mixes are going to have enough calcium to grow tomatoes as well. So what happens when
A
you
lot of water carries
overwater?
calcium in it too, right? And you're also and
Exactly.
watering what
Yeah.
calcium yeah.
And so it's very unlikely that what your medium is deficient in calcium. What's happening
Mhm.
is by overwatering or underwatering, the roots are not able to
Yeah.
actually absorb the calcium from the soil. So you are locking out the
Yep.
calcium
I was just gonna
at
say
that
lockout, yeah.
critical point. And like you pointed out, it's at like literally a day. If the water isn't
Mhm.
right, you could get
When that
blossom end rot.
flower is forming, right there, that day, that moment, that time that flower is trying to form itself, and then that's when it's gonna cause that problem in it that later comes in the
Exactly.
that you see at the end of the fruit because it didn't have what it needed to formulate that flower correctly at that
Yeah.
point.
And by the
And
time it
due to
appears,
lockout though yeah.
and by the time it appears, there's nothing you can do. It's already happened
Mhm.
weeks before. And so
Yep,
just consistent watering to keep the soil moist
yep.
so it's not saturated and it's not too dry. And I actually had blossom end rot in my garden
Mhm.
last year
Yeah,
because during that critical flowering phase,
yep.
we had incredible thunderstorms that were dropping incredible amounts of rain. And so some of my tomatoes got blossom end rot. And I'm pretty sure it's because they were saturated during those rainstorms on those days when the fruit was forming from the flower. And yeah,
Yeah.
and Dusty Flats is right. And so the opposite holds true too. I've had
Mhm.
blossom end rot because, like Mark was talking about, I go away on vacation and the plants
Mhm.
dry out and I come back and then they get blossom
Yep,
end rot a month
yep.
later.
Because then they're drying up, they're pulling back, they're losing ends, they're losing their ability to just do anything in the dry sense, right? They
Yeah,
just I mean, it's just they can't pull anything when there's nothing to pull when it's dry, right?
exactly.
So in that sort of sense, you get that similar issue. And then again, it comes down to this point that by the time you're really seeing it, it's already done. Your plant's probably moved on from that problem, and you're probably already seeing newer fruits that are probably doing just fine because
Yeah,
it's probably at this moment when just again we're at this weird weather, right?
yeah,
And things are up
exactly.
and down, and we don't know when we should be watering a little more or a little less, and things get really inconsistent. So it can be a real typical issue. Also, another thing though, Gardner Scott, wouldn't I've also heard variety as well too. Like some
Yeah,
tomato varieties are just really susceptible to those sort of issues. Like they're just going to be more
yeah, and that's
pickier about their
harder.
watering.
That's harder to pin down.
Mhm.
But yeah, some of the bigger tomatoes maybe need more calcium or they need more water to get that fruit set. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that you will almost never see blossom end rot on cherry tomatoes. I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody having blossom end rot on cherry tomatoes
Yeah.
because they just grow so quickly and they don't have that same need for a lot of calcium during that critical flowering phase. But
Mhm.
you get the bigger tomatoes and they're more likely to have blossom end rot if it's
Yeah.
inconsistent watering.
Yeah, definitely. And let's see here. Ooh, was a question. Oh, if blossom end rot happens, is the tomato still okay to consume?
Yeah. It's not a disease. It's not anything that is toxic. It just causes the end of the tomato to turn brown or black and soften. So, yeah, I'll just slice the tomato in half and I'll eat the top half. You
Yeah.
might see a difference in the texture and taste if you're a tomato aficionado, but no, I'll just harvest and cut off the bottom because there's nothing wrong with the plant and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with the fruit.
Yeah. It's just had a problem, and now it's dealing with the fact that the fruit itself isn't good on that spot. So it just doesn't have whatever it takes to keep that part of it alive. So the rest of it's good. Chop that off. Take it. It's like a lot of other things, that's in your garden too. Bugs are eating on some stuff, or some other things are happening to this and that or whatever. Chop that stuff off and eat the good part.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Let's see here real quick though. If anybody has any questions now, this is a good time to get those dropped into our conversation there. So any sort of gardening questions will do. Put them in nice big bold capital letters if you can. And we'll get those questions here in the conversation as we get moving along here today. Gardener Scott, you just got back from what I would consider almost like one of my dream vacations right now. So you just had a really cool garden adventure over, was it just the UK that you were in?
Just the UK. So I started in Scotland, then went to Wales, and then went to England.
Oh man, that's
and it was a gardening vacation. Took a few years to plan, a few extra years to budget, a lot of time to figure it all out. And of course, most of what I had planned didn't happen and ended up being better than what I had expected. So it was an awesome trip.
Oh wow, that's great. What would you? So you say better. What would you describe? What was the better about your trip? You would say.
So I had planned to do some touristy things, and I've been to England a few times. So my highlight for going to England was to visit Kew Gardens, which is part of the Royal Botanic Society, and that was really a primary goal. But I want to do a lot of other gardens. I want to do some of the basic, tour castle kind of stuff. And then because I was going, I contacted some of my YouTube friends. And so Eli and Kate in Scotland, and Tony in Wales, and Sean from Chili Chump in England. And I thought, I'd love to just meet them. And so I thought as well, if I can just get together for lunch and shake hands, it'll be great. And then it ended up being the main focus of the trip. I spent 5 days with Eli and Kate. I spent 2 full days with Tony. I spent 2 full days with Sean. And then there were a whole bunch of other YouTubers that I met along the way. So what was going to be just kind of a subsidiary part of my trip actually became the main part of the trip, and the most enjoyable part was just meeting all the other gardeners and spending some good time together.
Right on. Well, I know the answer to this one, but Big Will Dog says, "Who's the better host, Eli and Kate or Tony?" They all were great hosts.
That's like asking who your favorite child is.
That's right.
And they were both absolutely great. And so Eli and Kate had me over a couple times for a meal, and I got to spend the night at Tony's house and spent a lot of time in his allotment. And then the next day we were walking around for hours together at the Malvern Festival. And so they were both fantastic hosts in completely different ways. And the same with Sean. I was spending 2 days overnight at Sean's as well, and seeing his entire operation growing hundreds and hundreds of different types of chilies. And I was on his podcast, which just came out a couple days ago. We did that in his office. So, I mean, just you can't choose a favorite when it was all so
Oh
good.
man, I gotta check out that podcast for sure, definitely. But yeah, and again too, it's one of my favorite things too. Is when you get together, like I'll go to Vegas and go see John Kohler, or down in Los Angeles and hang out with Wendy Fan, and when you get to hang out with kind of your gardening peers, there's just nothing like it. And again,
Exactly.
we'll go to farmers markets or community gardens or do some hikes and stuff and just have such wonderful conversations, because there's just, again, nothing like hanging out with people who share such similar interests, for one, but even more so, who do similar
Exactly.
things like creating videos and making the things you do on YouTube.
Now, I will say one thing that I learned that all four of them are doing. I mean, these are dedicated YouTubers. So when you go to Simplify Gardening, and like Tony's video that just came out where he talks about mulch, great video, lots of good factual information with tips that work. And Eli and Kate are the same, and Sean are the same. All three of them are really embracing AI technology to make sure that what information they're giving out is accurate and is being presented in the best way possible. And so that's something that I'm just beginning to explore. But to see the dedication of all of those YouTubers in the UK to build their channels and to really make sure that they're producing quality videos was just incredible.
Yeah, and I last time Tony was on the show with us too, and I'm gonna have to get together with him again sometime and maybe get a refresher or whatever, and think about it as I start moving forward and thinking about and looking at a lot of that stuff too. I had such a great conversation with him about that, as I'm sure you did, to get, and it was so insightful on how that is all going to be working, not just now and all of that, but as we move forward into the future and all of that, and really just very interesting stuff. And I still wonder whether my old, and here I am, what I'm saying, at nearly 50, but like I hear my old mind, I'm like, I don't know if I could really do and get a lot of this stuff or figure it all out and everything. But I'm going to try to take my best shot at it as well too, to see what I can do to, get some of that stuff working. And because, like I said, there's just some really cool stuff you can do, and what, again, we can go on and on about that though, but those are just, those are just some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I saw Mobius asking about my favorite garden while I was there.
Yeah.
And
actually,
so,
that was going to be
so I'll break that into two different categories, because if you go to In the Garden with Eli and Kate, their garden is just incredible with the flowers and the color and the planting. And I loved every minute I was in the garden. And then Tony's series of allotments, and he did a video or a couple Instagram posts recently talking about his watering system. It's just amazing how he has put together the garden, and something he rarely shows that I was incredibly impressed with was his fenced in section that has all of his fruit trees and fruit bushes. So many of our videos that we all make tend to be focused on our vegetable gardening, but Tony is doing so much more than that gave me wonderful ideas to do as well. So that was amazing. But the gardens that I visited in the castles in Scotland were absolutely amazing. I went to the Gordon Castle Walled Garden, and they're doing things and have been doing things for hundreds of years with fruit trees and pruning fruit trees. That was mind-blowing. And so I will be doing some of that in my garden. You'll see some videos on the Gardener Scott channel with that, of course. And then Kew Gardens, that was a primary reason for making the trip. And you can't put it into words. I'll be doing a video. I just
can't imagine.
In a few months, when the garden tends to slow down a little, I'll be doing some of those tour videos that I put together. But a series of countries that are so passionate about gardening And then you have these Royal Horticultural Society gardens that, like the RHS Q, it's just absolutely
amazing. Yeah, it makes me think about a couple of books we had featured for our book club. We had our book club, Botanical Gardens of the World. Deborah Trentham came on and we featured her book, and Kew Gardens was one of those, and just amazing, just what encompasses just all of that sort of stuff and the history behind all of that sort of stuff. Because then that's another thing. We had Marta McDowell on this last year talking about the White House gardens. So we were looking at kind of some American history and gardens and all that too. But what we learned through that is that just like most everything else, as we were making this change to be in the United States and all of that, we also brought our passion and love for gardening. All these founders, were going to England and bringing plants and learning things, and there were their books and plant trades and all that sort of stuff that was just kind of being carried over, because that history is so long and deep over there for so many generations. So
and it continues.
Yeah, gosh, that's what I'm saying. It's so great that you got to go over and check that out, and to like I said, it's a dream trip for me for sure, because of all of that.
I would highly recommend it. I mean, it did take me multiple years to put together the budget and to put together the plan, but I'm so glad I did. And I want to do it again, in other countries with other friends, just because it's so incredible.
Man, I feel you. I've got a similar plan myself. It's always been in the work in the background too, and all of that. And again, too, with all the fun networking and things that we've getting to do here, hopefully maybe a few years down the road, I'll find myself in a good position to be able to make some of those garden adventures happen and everything too. So yeah, just really, really great stuff. Let's see here. I know there were another question or two about, in fact, Tony was asking, what are some of the best things you learned while visiting the UK?
And so, I love watching the UK gardening shows, and that's another huge difference. Gardener's World, which is a great show, that's on prime time Friday nights. I mean, can you imagine here in the United States having any gardening show on prime time?
For real, right?
It's amazing. So that being with UK gardeners and talking gardening, you're always going to learn something new. Now, the pruning of fruit trees and the way to use fruit trees beyond just simple espalier was one of the main things I brought back from that trip. And so I've already been, in fact, had my granddaughters putting some seeds in last week, and I was telling them about some of this, and they actually came up with some ideas. I don't want to release it too soon because I'm probably a year away from doing it, but I'm going to actually create some new major structures and garden areas because of what I saw was being done with the fruit trees. So that was absolutely amazing. And then the way that Eli and Kate use color, and they actually showed this in a video recently, but they have these flower beds that are just incredible with all the different flowers and the colors. And I don't even know half of the flowers because we just don't grow them in Colorado. And so I was learning about some of the selection, but this is an easy tip that I'll share, and it comes from them, is a pot. So you've got a flower bed with all of your flowers growing in it, and they have potted plants, potted flowers that they actually just slip down in between the flowers growing in the bed. So when you see their beds and they're just packed with color and packed with plants, they use potted plants to fill in the spaces where their regular garden bed maybe hasn't flowered yet or hasn't completely grown. And so, it's using those kind of ideas.
Just containers. So like you've got the bulbs are down there. They're just containers. Not ready because you got to wait till next spring for them or all that sort of stuff. But you got a bunch of them in there.
And
and
it's
you don't
just
want to go
the
and dig them
black
up or put them
plastic.
in. Just
Yeah, the
that's a
black
great idea.
plastic, nursery pots,
That's
but
a
they're
great idea.
hidden by the other plants in the bed. And you can swap them out. So if you like a
Yeah, you just
flower that
move.
only lasts for 2 or 3 weeks, you put it in
Mhm.
as a pot, and then you put a different pot in that lasts another 3 or 4 weeks. So I'll definitely be doing more of that, which is, I think incredible. But then, of course, I mentioned Tony's fruit trees and fruit bushes, and the
Yeah.
way he's growing them much closer than mine, and then the way he protects them from the birds and the animals. And I'm doing some of that, but now I want to do more because I can obviously grow more because I've seen it done by someone I know who is doing it very well and very efficiently. So I would say those are the big three.
Yeah, yeah, definitely some good ones for sure. Right on. Real quick though, I think where was it? Okay, there it is. Mobius did ask, are the French Chateau Gardens on your
Absolutely.
list? Oh yeah, I
So
can.
Monty Don
Yeah.
is the host of Gardener's World. He's not on every episode.
Mhm.
Every gardener in the UK knows who Monty Don is.
Oh yeah.
He actually has a series of television shows that you can find on YouTube on the gardens of Italy, and he's got another one with the gardens of France, and then he's got
Mhm.
another one with the gardens of England.
Man, that
And
guy's living
so,
the life right there, I'm telling
yeah,
you. Whew.
and so I want to do some of that. I want to be the American Monty Don from a certain perspective, where I
Right.
go to some of those French chateaus
Mhm.
and make some videos, and I go to the Italian villas and make some
Yeah.
videos, and I go to the English castles and make some videos. So yeah, when I say I want to do it again, those are the kind of things I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I've always imagined a kind of, like Monty Don for sure is really great at what he does and all that sort of stuff. I've also kind of imagined kind of a Anthony Bourdain style
Yeah.
gardening thing where it's instead of food being the centerpiece, the gardens are the centerpiece,
Yeah.
but it's culture and food as well included and everything around it. Oh gosh, it'd be so amazing to be able to do that
And I've
sort of
actually
stuff.
been watching some of his videos this week of American gardens. So a number of years
Oh,
ago, he came to America, and that's
yeah,
more than
yeah.
just the United States, even. And he has toured gardens all over the country, and then he has another series of gardens. It's like Around the World in 80 Gardens, I think is the name of the series that he did. And so
Yeah.
he
I've
goes
seen that
to
book.
Spain. I think he goes to places like Egypt and Thailand. I forget everywhere that he went. But yeah, there's just so many incredible gardens around the world that if you're
Mhm.
looking to do a vacation, check out what gardens are in that location. It doesn't have to be a gardening vacation like I did, but if you're
No.
going to a new spot, look and see what's there. The Edinburgh Botanic Garden
Yeah.
is just amazing in the city of Edinburgh.
Yeah, no matter what
And
chance or what you're doing when you're getting a chance and opportunity to go to a different place than you've ever been before or doing that sort of stuff, you always want to try to fit in some excursions to things
yep,
that you wouldn't normally get to see. Don't let any trip rush you through anything. Go see some stuff, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Right on, right on. Yeah, lots and lots going on. In fact, so I had this written down from one of our previous conversations,
Okay.
which is hard to believe. It's really like a couple of months ago now that it's
Mm.
been, but and we didn't get to it last time, so it's really kind of perfectly worked out because you did a video a while back ago about something, and I'm wondering whether or not you looked into it or you saw anything while you were over in the UK about that firsthand from when you did your video about Woolo culture.
So
I gotta know
yes,
about Woolo culture a little bit more here.
yes, uh, in Scotland. So you
Yeah.
know, uh, I encourage you to drive through Scotland if you're brave enough to do it. That was quite an adventure in itself, driving those
Yeah.
little roads in Scotland. I won't say on
Yeah.
the wrong side of the road, just on the opposite side of the road from what
That's
I'm
right.
used to.
Yeah.
But I visited Camilla, who has a big Instagram presence with the country garden with Camilla, and she uses wool in her garden. So it's not
Yeah.
the exact system that I set up with the antenna using wool yarn. The
Right.
closest I came was that she uses wool as a mulch. So
Yeah.
tying it in with Tony's recent video, I didn't see him talk about wool, but she uses wool from sheared sheep, not like
Yeah.
wool yarn, but actual taken off the back of sheep, and has like a 4 to 5 inch layer of mulch throughout major areas of her garden. And of
Yeah.
course, you can see the gardens she grows, they're just beautiful. So
Right.
obviously, there's something to wooliculture because the wool makes a difference, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess, wool would break down. I'm sure. Is there anything, do you get any understanding of like how long that mulch is
Yeah, so
taking
wool
to break
has
down or
lanolin, which is the natural oils that the sheep will excrete. It takes a long time to break down, so it's actually one of
it's
it
more
will
of like,
eventually. It is an organic mulch,
yeah,
but it lasts a lot longer than some of the grass or leaf or wood chip mulch, I think, that many of us might be using.
yeah, yeah. Most of those are all just going to have a pretty
Yeah.
steady natural breakdown process,
And
whereas
there
this
you
is
go.
more
Tony
like a,
says that the slugs don't like it either. And so I
uh
know that I don't have a slug problem in my garden at all. And I'm sure it's because of my wooliculture antennas that I've got placed in. So, yeah, using the wool to keep the slugs away. There you have it.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if they don't like it, that's a good idea as well too. Again, this is something again coming more out of there. I've seen videos and everything from the UK and all of that, and I guess it would be more based on your access to this sort of stuff. So being a sheep farmer and that sort of
Yeah.
thing makes it pretty good. I don't know necessarily if folks can go and buy, as you would say, straw or bark mulch or any of those sort of things. Wool, though, in order to do that.
Yeah, there might be some areas, big sheep country, but I'm not
Yeah,
aware that the average person could buy a bale of wool. But who knows? People might
yeah,
have contacts and can give it a try here.
yeah, yeah. It'd be interesting to see. It'd be cool, like I said, kind of have like a cool blanket, versus maybe a mulch in a sense. It's a mulch, but
Yeah.
it acts probably more like a blanket, So I mean, it would be interesting. And like you said, testament to a great garden utilizing that sort of system. So,
Yep.
that's really, really great. Yeah. So that's cool. I I remember writing that down and we didn't get to that. And I was like, oh man,
That's
it's
good.
so great. He went to the UK, so this will fit in perfectly. So right on, right on. So you actually got to go see some wooliculture
In
in person.
practice in Scotland. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Right on. Let's see here. Let's go back real quick to that Roma tomato Serena was asking about. The Roma tomato plant is in a 20-gallon fabric pot with Miracle Grow moisture control potting mix. And we've gotten 4+ inches of rain in the past 4 days, with more to come tonight. Ideas, as in like,
Yeah. Take it out of the rain. Go put it in a garage or a shed for a day or two so that it doesn't get any more rain. Like we were talking
yeah,
about, the moisture control potting mix has probably the peat moss and the cocoa coir in it,
mhm,
and then it might also have some of those artificial pellets that will swell up with water, some type of polymer that also
mm,
holds on to water. And so chances are it's already saturated, which is the reason for the blossom end rot. And you need to have it dry out a little bit. And with more rain coming, just get it out of the rain for a couple days.
Big Will Dog was saying, back to the wool culture, I could make a decent bale of fur from my husky if I wanted.
There you go.
There you go. I
I've
don't
been
know.
thinking
It
about that.
gotta
I
be
was
the
talking
same,
about
right?
that.
Dog
Yeah.
fur,
I
and
was talking about that with
wool.
my granddaughters because Mala sheds like you won't believe. And we've been talking about making some yarn and knitting a sweater with our dog pair. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting, huh? We'd love to see something like that. Okay, let's see here. Dusty's Flats asked earlier, because we both have freezes in late spring, would it be beneficial to create a frost cage for tree fruit? Had the dreaded June drop on plums again.
Yeah, if you could. So that's why I say when I look at what Tony has done, I'm trying to figure out how I can modify that. Because the same thing, I lost. I mentioned that in the video that came out yesterday. I lost all of my plum blossoms this year, and the tree was just packed. And you can, if you can, basically surround your tree or even portions of the tree with a blanket that you can put over it to keep some of those temperatures up, then you can stop some of that drop. Just like if you have the plants in your raised beds and you put a hoop and you cover the hoop with plastic, you can get through some of those cold nights. It's the same basic concept. The biggest issue that I have, and maybe Dusty Flats as well, is that it only works when the temperature is dropping a few degrees. So you'll see this in Florida, for instance, in the citrus groves in Florida. If the temperatures are dropping down close to freezing with a likelihood of a frost, they'll actually spray a water mist throughout the orchard, and that's enough to keep the blossoms and the fruit from being lost. But if the temperature were to drop much more than that to a hard freeze stage and below, even something as simple as water or covering the trees is not enough. So you can do it during that period where it's just cold, but not frigid. And that's the issue I had, is after my blossoms set, my temperature actually fell down to about 18 degrees, which is -8 Celsius. And no flowers are going to survive when it gets that cold. And it was just one night. And even if I had put blankets over all of my fruit trees, the blossoms still would have been killed because it got that cold. It was just a freak storm that rolled through. So yes, if you can create a frost cage for that 3 to 4 Fahrenheit range, right around freezing, then you might be able to save your blossoms.
Yeah. And also too, and I think we talked about this last time around as well. I was asking you about, and Tony's in here mentioning this as well too. Tip, if
yeah,
you're
exactly. That's what the orchards
dropping,
are doing, is spraying with water.
Spray with water. We talked about that as I had a friend who had a peppers that they were growing, and had a potential for frost on their peppers that they had, so they scrambled out there to spray them down with water. I was like, wow, that's kind of some interesting science. And that's the science behind that, is that the water, as it freezes, protects it more than
it's all about the
just
thermodynamics.
Frozen or something.
So in my greenhouse I have about 250 gallons of water, and it's an unheated greenhouse. And my temperatures get down to -15 degrees. I think that's about -18 Celsius in winter. And I get asked all the time, doesn't your water freeze? No, it doesn't. When you've got a barrel loaded with 55 gallons of water, it's not going to freeze when it gets that cold overnight. Now, if it was that cold over a period of days, it would freeze, because it takes an incredible amount of energy from water to convert from a liquid state to a solid state. To go from liquid water to ice is more energy than the environment often has in an overnight cold situation. And so that's what happens, is that there's actually it kind of acts as an insulator, because it doesn't reach that point below that outer layer of ice that develops. Underneath that, it's still water against the plant, or still water against the blossom. and that's what protects it. I mean, there's much more science to it than that than I know, but that's the basic idea. Right at that point where it freezes, underneath the ice, it's still liquid.
Yeah. Tony says, I have 2,000 liters in his tunnel and it never freezes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Big Will Dog says they spray orange trees. There's a hard freeze, seen it happen a long time. So yeah, it's a good way to do that and protecting the trees and all of that. But what if again too, and this was a question that I had, when we got plants and maybe there's different stages or different reasons for it, but what would be some reasons that we would pull flowers or we would pull fruits from a plant or a tree?
Yeah, that's a good question. I covered that in a video that I did last week where I was putting lilies in the ground. And a primary reason, I also mentioned it a year ago when I was putting strawberries in the ground.
Yeah.
If you are putting a new plant in the ground and the roots have not developed yet, the natural response to a number of plants that are stressed by the transplanting phase is to send out flowers because it thinks it's going to die and it wants to set seed and spread through propagation. And so the energy that you would want going to your roots, because you just put a new plant in the ground, instead is going to flower development. So that's a primary reason to pull flowers, is during transplanting or shortly after transplanting, pull all those flowers off, because you need that energy that's coming from the photosynthesis to go back into the roots, so the roots get a more established plant. Different plants allow for a resurgence. So, for instance, strawberries. When I put my strawberries in the ground for the first time, I'll pluck off that first round of strawberry flowers. But then a month later, when I get more strawberry flowers, I leave them because the plant has had now probably 6 or 7 weeks in the ground. It's established, and I can start harvesting the fruit off of those plants. There are a lot more perennials, a lot bigger bushes that you might want to keep cutting those flowers off for the rest of the season, because that bigger plant needs a more robust root system.
Development. Yeah.
Definitely. And then another big
establishment's just really the key word, though, too.
Exactly.
So we're really just trying to get things established, those root systems just well in there, and the plant has its place, and then it's ready to start doing what it's meant to do.
Exactly. And another big reason, and I think I did an Instagram on this last year, is on fruit trees, particularly young fruit trees. They're going to set a lot of blossoms, and a young fruit tree, like in its first year, maybe its second year that it's beginning to set fruit, it might have 100 or 200 blossoms. My peach tree last year had about 200 blossoms that appeared on the tree. And I pruned off about 70 to 75% of those blossoms, because the branches were just not strong enough to support very much fruit. And so that's another reason is if the plant can't support the amount of fruit that's about to appear, then pluck off those flowers so that the fruit that remains is going to be able to be fed by the plant, but also that you're not going to damage the plant because you've got too much growing on it.
Or also maybe at the point of if you don't get the flowers, definitely you can see where fruit is forming, and if you're getting bunches of fruit together, maybe there's an idea you want to break it down to 1 or 2.
Exactly. That's the idea, is that you prune off a lot of those flowers, because by leaving them all, you're not doing any justice for them.
And maybe a smaller, more newer plant instead of 2, maybe 1. You just, because like you're saying, the weight, you want to make sure it can handle the weight of whatever's coming on as well.
Yeah.
So maybe a little less for younger trees, and then the older trees can probably handle a little bit more.
Exactly.
Okay, right on. Excellent. We still let's run through some of these here real quick. Okay, we did that one. I gotta make sure to take that. Oh, Val asked earlier, do I need fertilizer, or is the soil going to supply what's needed for the plants? I put granular in before planting the seedlings.
So it depends on how good your soil is. So I amend my soil every year, and at about the 3-year point, no fertilizer is needed beyond that point. If you are amending on a regular basis and you've had a few years for the organic matter to break down and release its nutrients, and for the soil life to be developed to make more nutrients available to the plants, I don't use fertilizer in my garden at all anymore.
Mhm.
But
Is that
for
the
a
same for
new bed,
containers?
that's where I'm headed there.
Okay,
So
okay, cool.
for a new garden,
Mhm.
in the first year, I
Yeah.
will put in some granular fertilizer because most of the soil needs a nitrogen boost just to get that soil life going.
Yeah.
And then in the second year, I take a look at the soil and the plants and determine if they need any fertilizer. Most of the time, they don't. That's if you have a garden bed and it's
Mhm.
actively growing in soil. When we grow in pots and containers, we're not growing in soil. We're growing in soilless mixes that are made with peat or coir and perlite and vermiculite. And there might be some worm castings and some compost, but you're not going to have the same soil life development. You're not going to have the same structure of the soil. And unless you know that you have a really good soil with the nutrients in it, and I say soil, soilless mix, you're going to
Mhm.
need to add fertilizer. So in containers, you should probably plan to fertilize at least once during the growing season. If you're using a potting mix that has a slow release fertilizer in it, then you may
Mhm.
not need to fertilize anymore. And so carry that back into the beds. If the amendment that you're putting into your bed contains a slow release granular fertilizer, then you may not need to add any more. Just see how your plants are doing and they'll speak to you.
Mhm. Yeah, also, Dusty Flass was mentioning what a sandier soil, I guess, where you're just going like you're getting a
And
lot
so
of
that
water.
depends as well. So when we talk about fertilizers, and most of the fertilizers that we're going to buy and put on our plants are NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The thing about the phosphorus and the potassium in particular is that they bind with the soil. So when you put them in your soil, even a sandy soil, they are less likely to leach out. They're less likely to drain. Nitrogen, however, is free movable in the soil. And so whether you've got a good soil or a poor soil, sandy soil or clay soil, eventually the nitrogen is going to leach out of that soil. By adding organic matter, like a compost amendment on a regular basis, you are helping to retain some of that nitrogen because it's the little sponges of the organic matter. They're holding some of that nitrogen. Yeah, plain sandy soil with nothing in it, the nitrogen is going to roll right through. That's why you need to put in the organic matter so that the nitrogen actually sticks around for a while. And you
Mhm.
may need to add a nitrogen fertilizer depending on what the plant is and whether it needs supplemental nitrogen.
Yeah, yeah. I've been really enjoying and working on my second season of where just most of my amendments, like again, I'll top off with some compost and those sort of things. But my feeding throughout the year really is a lot of our vermicompost teas that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so really what all I'm doing with my containers is just really kind of just re-inoculating it with microbes every now and then. Just
Sure.
kind of just really just hitting it up and trying to keep the new soil, again, similar with in-ground bed. I'm just adding new soil to the top and
Yeah.
stuff and letting it break down through there. And as I was mentioning earlier, someone was asking about worms, and maybe you can answer this question too. They were asking about whether or not putting worms into the raised bed would be a good idea. And I was just explaining that that if your bed or your soil and all of that sort of stuff has the good organic material in it and all these sort of things that they can feed on. I go out there into my containers, my 5-gallon wicking bucket containers. I was transplanting pepper transplants out there a little while back ago, and there are worms crawling around up in there and doing fine. So I suppose if the environment's right, they've got things that they can supply themselves with food and all of that in some ways.
The worms will find it. At the Galileo Garden, we built it on what used to be tennis courts. So, you know, it was a fenced area of tennis courts, compacted granite. It was terrible, terrible soil. There was a concrete wall that was 12 inches thick and about 5 to 6 inches long at the base, all the way around this old basketball court area. And once I started using compost amendments, the worms came. They just showed up. I don't know how they crawled through that sand and gravel. I don't know how they got past that concrete barrier, but they found a way. And so those are the native worms that we have. Most of the worms, like vermicomposting, are not the same native worms that we have in our garden. And so like red wigglers, for instance, they only live and eat in a very small range of temperatures. And so if it gets too hot or if it gets too cold, they will either die or they will stop eating. And most of our gardens are much too cold in early spring and late fall for those worms to survive. And most of our summers are too hot for those worms to survive. So adding vermicomposting worms to our garden beds, you're probably sending those worms to a quick death because it's not the same environment. Whereas, like you said, the native worms, if you've got a hole in a bucket, a worm is going to find that bucket.
Yeah. For some way, I mean, maybe possibly I'm finding ways of getting and through my soil and where I got them and all that worms are in there too. So there's eggs as well that could possibly make it. So then they get in that way as well too. But all sorts of ways they can find their ways into a good organic container that has everything they need, and they'll thrive and do fine in there if they're natives for sure. And that's a great point to make.
And if you have a whole bunch
I'm
of
not going to
extra,
take my vermicomposting ones and throw them
if
out
you've got some of those European night crawlers or those red wigglers and you got more than you need, sure, throw them in your garden because they will work for a period of time. You just don't expect that they're going to survive for the entire season and especially over winter.
Yeah. My suggestion would be is to help someone else start up a vermicomposting system and give them your red wiggler worms so that they can move on and continue doing their work and leave the native work to the native worms in all of your garden spaces outdoors.
Exactly.
That's probably a good idea, huh? Okay, let's see. I see Serena's got another question. Serena's always got some great questions, I'm telling you. The cover screen for my rain barrel is broken. Which oil is best for mosquito control, neem or like Jamaican black castor oil? Is that something you would do? I mean,
yeah. So I stay away from things like that. Neem oil is meant to put on plants. I'm not sure if castor oil is going to be effective. Do what I do, and I saw Tony do this in the recent Instagram reel as well. Is you can get little discs that float in the water that are specifically made to kill the mosquito larva. So, you know, what used to be done, and this is probably where Serena got this, is in swampy areas, you put oil, petroleum oil, and it floats on the surface of the pond. And they can't breathe. It kills everything underneath. But that's not something I want to do in my garden. And even though castor oil comes from castor trees and it's not going to be harmful, though it is toxic to people in excess, get some of those little discs and just float them in the rain barrel and you will never have mosquitoes. They're extremely effective. They're cheap. Just go to Amazon and look for a mosquito disc or floating mosquito pellets and you'll see what they are. And you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how much oil or whether the oil is even going to be affected.
Yeah, and those are perfectly good and organic. You can use that water on your garden without any problem. Whereas neem or these other oils and stuff too, why similar to I don't spray or do a lot of that sort of stuff, because ultimately in any sort of like attack at that level towards pests or problem things in our garden is also going to go after beneficials too,
Absolutely.
when it comes down to it. And that's just,
Yeah, so like the Jamaican black castor oil, I imagine is relatively expensive for a quart, and I don't know how much you would need. And I saw Jay make a comment as well. You could buy a lot of those mosquito discs for the price of black castor oil, no doubt. And it's the BT, it's the Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria that will only target the mosquito larva that would be developing in that. And then you can continue to water your garden with your rain barrel without any concerns for any other plant or animal.
yeah, excellent, excellent. And then Serena also asked, with all the rain we're expecting this week, should I wait until it all ends before transplanting squash, tomato plants in the raised beds? They are a third each peat moss, vermiculite, and compost.
It depends. Check your soil. You really shouldn't be working in saturated soil. If the soil is muddy and you dig a hole and the hole fills with water, then don't plant. But you might have good draining soil, and you go out and you dig a hole and there's no water in it and it's not muddy, then you can plant. So it depends on how saturated the soil is.
Yeah. If it's well draining, then yeah, it's probably going to be just fine. But you don't want to go you don't want to go put your transplant in a puddle.
That's right. Well, you might. I mean, I have done that before with bare root fruit trees. You have a bare root fruit tree, and one of the first steps that's recommended is to soak it in a 5-gallon bucket of water for an hour before planting. And so I have planted bare root fruit trees in saturated soil, because it's the same as putting in a bucket of water at that point.
Right. Or just kind of go lay it down in a big old puddle somewhere for a while, right? Yeah. Right. Excellent. Right on, everybody. Thanks for all the great questions today. I still got another one here I want to talk about here before we get going on and talk a little bit about some of your recent content. But a little while back ago, just before was it before or after you got back from your trip, you did a live stream talking about traveling with a garden. And so
I did it after I got back. I think that was the first show I did when I got back. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So real quick, just a real quick synopsis there. What was kind of like the big thing you prepared for, and did everything work out when you got back? And was or did you come back to see anything that you weren't expecting after that?
Yeah, all of the above. So one of the things I talked about in my live stream was plan for it. Before you do a long trip, plan for taking care of your garden. And one of the things I think we talked about as well, it's Mark was talking about timers today.
Yeah.
You need someone to come look at your garden. So just because you have timers and an irrigation system set up for all your plants, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And so I had my neighbor a year or two ago. I walked out and his water was gushing. I mean, like a fountain. And so I called him, and he was out of the country. He had his son that was watching the house. And so he was able to call his son to have his son come to the house to turn off the water, because there was a hole and it was just gushing everywhere.
Yeah.
So one, tell your neighbors that you're leaving so they can keep an eye on your garden. But two, have somebody who can come and make sure things are going well. So my daughter was coming every other day to water the plants in my greenhouse and to water my tomatoes and my peppers that were in my basement. They all survived. Everything was great. The weeds I wasn't planning on, and I wasn't expecting having rain for as much as it rained while I was gone. And so I'm still 2 weeks later dealing with the rain issues that I've just got so many weeds. I filled 2 big garden bushels of just weeds today that I threw in the compost.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so those are some of the unexpected things. But the thing that just really impacted me the most that I hadn't anticipated, and it's not bad, it's just a learning experience. So normally when I start my peppers and my tomatoes, because I'm here every day at my house, I can
Yeah.
put them on a heat mat and I can monitor the temperature as the seedlings are beginning to grow within the house.
Yeah.
And because I was going to be gone and because my daughter wasn't coming but every other day, I turned all the heat mats off. I didn't have any of the plants on heat mats. And then because I was leaving, I turned the furnace down so that
Yeah.
I wasn't heating an empty house. And what ended up happening is all of those plants are a little stunted because they were
Yeah.
growing in a cold basement rather than a nice warm environment. So all the plants live, but they're not as big as they would normally be
Yeah.
because I wasn't here to give them a temperature that really encouraged growth. So you can
Yeah.
plan all you want, and even when things turn out, there are always those things that end up being unexpected.
And something like that's just pretty much a form of plant shock that
Yeah,
eventually you
essentially, yeah.
adjust the temperature back to where it needs to be and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then they'll get back to growing where they need to be.
Yeah,
They just a
like for
little bit
instance,
behind, right?
you know, I'm not planning to put my tomatoes and my peppers in my garden until the soil temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's a point that they really need to be. And so that's about I think what's that say, 28 degrees Celsius,
Celsius.
somewhere around that
Yeah.
range. Well, I had the house set at 63 degrees. And so
Yeah.
so my house was at 17 Celsius. It was so
Oh
much
wow.
colder.
Oh wow.
And the reason I don't put my plants outside until it's 70 degrees is because of the shock, because of the plant shock. Well, my whole house never got to that temperature the entire time I was gone. And so
Oh wow.
the plants are stunted because they were just too cold. The soil wasn't warm
Yeah.
enough for them to be doing better.
Right on, right on. Excellent. And real quick, one last question from me about what's growing on in the garden. It is just about harvest time for one of our crops growing on in the garden, and that's my garlic out there. As I'm noticing and seeing, I got hard neck variety. Mind you, there's 2 different
Nice.
varieties of garlic. You got a soft neck, which will kind of flop over a bit, as they're starting to mature and get ready. But hard neck's going to put up this nice seed stalk
Escape.
and it twists around and it has this
Yeah.
funky little look. So I'm out there in the garden and I see all these little twisty little scapes out there. Tell me real quick a little bit, what should I be thinking about when it comes to harvesting these garlic? I'm going to cut the scape first, wait a little bit of time. What am I going to do
Yeah,
here?
go ahead and cut off the scape. So earlier we were talking about why you would pull off the flowers, and
Mhm.
it's to put the energy into the roots. Well, you're trying to grow a garlic bulb, and energy from that bulb is going into that seed stalk. That's what a scape is. And
Mhm.
so by leaving that scape in place, you're taking energy away from the bulb, and
Yep.
the bulb is going to stop getting any bigger. So yeah, as soon as those scapes start appearing, if you want a bigger bulb of garlic, go ahead and cut those scapes off. You can eat them; they're perfectly edible. They have
Mhm.
a mild garlic flavor. You could
Well,
leave
they're
them. They're
twisty though, right? You don't want to cut them and eat them when they get straight because they get pretty woody
right.
by
Yeah,
then,
get them
right?
when they're still young. When they're twisty, they're
Yeah.
going to be tender and have a much nicer flavor. When you wait till they're straight up, they're going to be more fibrous and they're not going to have as a good a flavor, in my opinion. You can leave them, and they
Yeah.
will set flowers and seed, and you can save that garlic seed, and you can plant that garlic seed. You probably won't get the same type of garlic that you grew, and it's going to take probably 3 years before you get garlic, but you
Yeah.
could do that as an option. The
I
easiest
actually
thing is just cut the scapes off.
Yeah, I actually did this too, and I'm gonna show this in one of my upcoming videos because I saved and I did that, and now I'm like on year 2 or so, but I've got these like little mini garlics almost with little mini scapes on them right now.
Cool.
And they're out in the garden in this pot and everything. So I don't know. In that sense, I don't know. I'm going to cut the scapes and I'm just going to let them. What am I going to do then? You know what I mean? Are they just fully done?
So the
I
thing
mean, am
about
I going to be able to grow them still? Do I have to cut them and then repot them again later on?
So if you plant with seed, or if you use something other than a clove, it's going to take a couple years for the bulb to develop into cloves. So yeah, if it's brand new, if it's a baby,
and it's still solid,
then exactly, you want to leave it for another year because it needs to have that exposure over the winter, the vernalization, the cold, to turn it into a bulb. And that's why it often takes years to reach the point where you have a bulb that you can then separate into cloves that you can then plant and then get a harvest the next year.
But should I cut it back and then like pull it as though I would with a regular bulb and then replant it again come fall?
Yeah, you could do that, because what's going to happen? Well, it depends. So what's going to happen, for now, cut off the scape. Eventually those leaves are going to brown and they're going to fall to the ground. You could leave the bulb in the ground.
Just let it do its thing and stay.
The issue is if it's a really wet area, you don't want the bulb to rot, and you're not losing anything if you dig that hard root structure up and then put it back in the ground at the same time you would be planting all your other garlic. You could do that too. So a lot of it depends on just how wet and that area is going to get and whether you need to do something else within that area. But if it's good draining soil and you don't need the bed for anything else, try leaving them in the ground and see what happens.
All right, we'll call this just a quick follow-up. When can I collect the seeds from the garlic scapes? My scapes already opened.
Yeah, so this is the same with any allium. You're going to see, I have a video where I talk about onion seeds. And so the same thing that I show in that video with the onion is what you do with the garlic. You leave it growing until the seeds are fully mature and begin to brown. At about that point, the leaves are also going to probably be completely brown, and then you can collect the seed.
Excellent. Well, there we go, Scott, man, another wonderful, so awesome to have you back on the show. It's always, you always like
be here.
A couple of breaks in the time that we started doing this. So it's always great, after the break to have you back and to get in and talk about this, and even better today to get to talk about this just really wonderful trip that you got to take. And again, like you were saying too, is everybody can look forward to seeing throughout the season some more bits of that trip, right? Is that something you're planning on doing there, is releasing that like that?
Yeah, so the videos I'm doing right now are focused on the active growing garden. So when I was putting the lilies in the ground, I made a video about that. And now the video that came out yesterday talks about growing food in your garden. The video that'll be coming out later in the week talks about some old-fashioned tips and tricks that can be used to get the best garden during the summers. And so when we get out of this primary growing season and things begin to slow down a little bit, then I'll have those videos of my trip come out so that you can start planning your trip next year in this fall when you see the videos that I show about my trip this spring.
Yeah, that's going to be excellent. I really look forward to that because, again, you just described some really cool places and some really cool stuff to really look forward to. Like I said, my dream trip. So I'm going to live my dream trip through you throughout this year as I continue to plan mine down into the future anyways. And everybody out there, again, too, we got links down below for Gardener Scott's channel. I know most all of you are watching right now are already subscribers, but if you haven't by chance, definitely go and check out Gardener Scott's channel and go check out what he's got coming out there. As you mentioned there, Scott, you had a video you just put out called Can You Really Grow Your Own Food? So go check out that most recent video from Gardener Scott, as well as how to plant lilies you mentioned a little bit earlier as well. But the key there is for future success, right?
Exactly.
And then also too, Yeah, we're lucky here to have Gardner Scott nailed down for our second Sunday of the month to answer all of your garden questions. But Gardner Scott's always available to answer your garden questions, or at least on Mondays for sure, too.
That's
So
right.
he'll be right back at it, answering all of your questions. If you didn't get any questions answered today on the show, on his live stream, starting bright and early, I believe it's 8 a.m. Pacific,
8 a.m. Pacific time,
noon Eastern, right?
Yep.
And at that
no, 11 o'clock Eastern.
11 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. And I think that would be like something like 4 o'clock in British time as well, too, for all of you as well.
Yeah, so 4 o'clock
to include
British
that into my
time.
streams now.
Yeah, and I think it's either 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning in Australia. So
yeah, real early for those folks.
Where you are. That's right.
Excellent, Scott. So thank you so much. And for all of you out there, go and check out Scott's live stream tomorrow. Get those questions answered and everything. But yeah, it's just really wonderful to have you back, Scott. And thanks again for spending your time with us here today.
I appreciate the time being here. Shout out to Jay, who always does a wonderful job. And good to see you, Enoch. I'm headed back out to the garden now.
Absolutely. Me too as well. I just got to finish this up and I'm right out there. So we'll see you again on the next second Saturday of the month, and definitely tomorrow on the Gardner Scott channel to answer any more of your garden questions. Thanks again, Scott. We'll see you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Oh, I hit the wrong one. Sorry. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. There we go. Another great show in the books for us. Another weekend in the books for us here at the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for all of the wonderful, awesome questions. You guys really bring it every time here for our Ask Gardner Scott show. So thank you all so much for that as well too. Thank you to Gardner Scott for spending his time with us here on the show for such a wonderful conversation. And I think that's what's really kind of fun about getting Scott here and to be able to do this is it's not just a Q&A. This is a real fun conversation where we can just dig into and talk about all these different things like his trip to the UK and all the fun things he got to do there and everything too. So really awesome of him to spend his time with us. And like I said, too, make sure you go and check out his live stream tomorrow and get all of those questions you might not have got answered on today's show tomorrow on his show. And like Tony says here, great live. And Jay is a star. That's right. Great shout out to Jay there from Gardner Scott. And you can see Jay as well in the chat of Gardner Scott's live streams too. Jay's awesome and does facilitating for his live streams too. So again, thank you, Jay, for all you do for our show as well too. And again, everybody, thank you too. There's just a great show today. We had talked about lots and lots of stuff, so I hope that you guys got a lot of great information out of our conversation today. And for those of you who might be here still on the replay, or if you're watching back again or anything, definitely jump into the comments. Let us know what you think of our conversation today. If you do have any other questions or anything like that we might be able to ask Scott next time he's on the show too. Maybe we could do that too. All right, everybody. We do have lots and lots coming up here on the show. Like I said, we are here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, and as I mentioned, 7 p.m. British summertime for those of you over in the UK. And so definitely yeah, definitely want to make sure you continue to join with us as we have more and more great guests today. I'm telling you, I don't know why I'm having so much fun, and this is again behind the scenes. There's a lot of little buttons and doing that stuff, and I know you guys have been rolling along with me today as we've had a couple of little glitches and those sort of things, and hitting the right buttons at the right time. I'm having probably one of my more fun shows when it comes to not hitting the mark exactly when it comes to things that I'm trying to do here anyways. But I do want to make sure I encourage all of you to come and join with us next week. Next Saturday on the show, we're going to have joining with us again our good friend farmer Greg Peterson over at the Urban Farm Podcast. Will be back with us to talk more seed saving and food security and all of those sort of great things that farmer Greg Peterson loves to talk about, and much more too. We are also going to get to meet Gray from Urban Gardening with Gray. We'll get to meet him on our Are You Following Me segment for our Saturday show, so you won't want to miss out on that. And then next Sunday, so this is the second Sunday of the month with Gardener Scott. Next Sunday is the third Sunday of the month, and the third Sunday of the month means we've got our monthly gardening book club with our good friend MBC Mark Boucher Colbert, who was doing our water timer segment earlier today on the show. He'll be with us live for In the Garden next week, and also our monthly gardening book club where we're featuring the book from Christian Douglas, The Food Forward Garden. This is a really great book, a complete guide to designing and growing edible landscapes. And I'm telling you, this book is really great, similar to, I mentioned earlier, that Botanical Gardens of the World we did, similar to that in a way. It's just very photo forward book. Lots of beautiful pictures of lots of amazing gardens, lots of great inspiration for edible landscapes. So that's going to be a really awesome conversation to talk with author of the book, Food Forward Garden, Christian Douglas, on our monthly gardening book club for next Sunday edition of the show. Like I said, we got lots and lots growing on here on the Let's Get Growing show each and every week, so you don't want to miss out, like I said. And like lots and lots of just awesome conversations. And also, everybody, if you can, real quick before you head out, click that like button, hit the thumbs up, and of course subscribe. You won't want to miss out on any of those future conversations on our show and our upcoming shows, as well as videos. I did release a new garden journal this last Friday. We've got it coming up, and I got to be careful in actually saying exactly what days I'm thinking of releasing things, because something is always coming up and I'm never making those sort of deadlines. So I'll just say coming up this week, for sure, sometime this week, I'm going to release some more of those pepper growing videos in our ultimate pepper growing guide that we're doing this year, focusing on how I grow all of our peppers from seeds indoors to thriving plants outdoors and collecting seeds for next year's crop. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. So definitely hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, and as well share with all your friends and all of your garden groups out there. Real quick, if you do, you're here on YouTube and all of that, you can go to our share tab. That's right there on the video of this live stream after we're done here and it's over, and you can hit share, and that'll share to your community tab, and you can share all out and do all that sort of stuff. I appreciate all of that as well too. All the sharing you guys do. We want to make sure we're helping continue to grow this just wonderful, amazing gardening community that's just really growing and thriving here each and every weekend on the Let's Get Growing show. I see you guys chatting all day long through the live stream and all of that too, and it's just so awesome to see where we are today with everything. But there's so much room for so many more people to be involved in our gardening community here. So definitely get out and share with all of your friends, and also be sure, like I said, to follow all those links down below in the description. And hopefully we'll see all of you coming up this next week on the show. Like I said, we got some great shows for you. So I'll see you all this next Saturday. See you then.